Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Rasan427. Actually, today, what I actually talk about is actually what's been going on with this Bret Hart thing. And, I don't know where it was really at, where Bret Hart actually said these things, but he had a few criticisms of basically what's been going on inside, modern wrestling. That's what he has criticism with. And some of it I agree with, some of it I think he's just, acting a certain type of way. It just, a lot of old guys that listen to him talk, and it seems like they're just kind of hating on the new generation. But, I mean, they might be right about some of it. But I just feel like they have to understand that wrestling evolves and things change. Things can't stay the exact same from what they were in the 90s, 2000s, or anything like that. Things absolutely change. In today's modern wrestling, there's a lot more smaller guys. When I was growing up, those type of smaller guys, only a few of them who got pushed. Now, whole wrestling is filled with smaller guys. Like a guy like Daniel Bryan in 2003, he would have never main evented in WrestleMania. But in 2014, he did main event in WrestleMania. So that's just stuff that you just gotta think about. And that's told you the evolution of wrestling right there. Daniel Bryan would have never been a main eventer in the 90s or early 2000s. There's just no way he would have been a main eventer. And the crowd actually changed, because the crowd probably wouldn't care for him back then anyway. So that's just one example of how the crowd actually changes and how wrestling evolves. Now, first we're going to talk about this Jon Moxley criticism. And a lot of people ever talk about this. I watch AEW from time to time. I do not watch them every week. And I basically keep up with everything that's actually going on with AEW. And people have often this criticism of him bleeding every single week. And him bleeding basically every single match, which I don't like that. I think it takes away from bleeding because, when blood comes in, especially in modern wrestling, since there's not that much blood, actually should mean something. Even back then, people didn't bleed every single week. So I totally understand that. And some people were offering to think of, he's trying to make it more realistic, which is just that doesn't even make sense because people have been punched in the face for years and they wasn't bleeding. So I just don't see how that makes any sense, because just as far as wrestling logic, and we all know it's predetermined, we all know it's not real, so it's just what's even the point of that? But I do feel like he does bleed every week, but you can't tell somebody what to do and what not to do. If he wants to bleed every single match, he can bleed. I don't know if that's safe for him to do that. I don't know if that's, if he wants to do that and people in AEW okay with it, then I'm okay with it. I don't see the big criticism that I've been hearing a lot of people talk about that, so I don't really find that to be that big of a deal. And Bret Hart said that basically don't watch that crap anymore, that he doesn't watch anymore, and I totally understand that, him bleeding every week. And another thing, it was two topics, or the main topic was rappers. The main topic, I can't believe I just said rappers. I don't know, I got rappers on my mind. Wrestlers slapping their leg during matches, which I've watched wrestling 80s, 90s, and wrestlers has always slapped their leg. I don't understand what this criticism came from of wrestlers slapping their legs. So when somebody does a switch in music or a super kick, a wrestler will slap their leg, just make the sound. People out of nowhere, after Bret Hart says this, I believe it was Bret Hart who actually started this, people went crazy with it. I believe Booker T said something to it as well, and I really don't understand people's problem with it. I guess they see it as it being some type of problem. Shawn Michaels didn't do it every time, but there's literally matches. I can literally look up probably 10, 20 clips of Shawn Michaels slapping his leg while doing the sweep. So you're going to criticize Shawn Michaels, who's the greatest in-ring wrestler of all time? That's just something I just don't get. I just feel okay, because the Young Bucks and these other guys are doing it way more. The Usos do it every single time. So you're going to criticize the Usos, who's probably the best tag team in wrestling today and one of the greatest tag teams of all time. You're going to criticize them. So I just don't really get it. So and I hate the criticism where it's you criticize something, but then you don't say the names, and then you say it's not them, but then you say you're not saying who it is. So if someone criticizes wrestlers being old, right? They'll say, "Oh, I'm not talking about Chris Jericho." So who are you talking about? Who are you talking about? Old wrestlers still wrestling today. I forgot. I think it was Booker T talking about old wrestlers still wrestling today. He said, "Oh, I'm not talking about Chris Jericho." Yes, you are. If you're talking about old wrestlers wrestling today, you're talking about Chris Jericho. And I hate when people do that, say, "Oh, it's not them." Yes, it is them. And so I just don't like that. And then he criticized wrestling where the spot, which happens in pretty much every match. It's crazy because after he said it, it happened every match that I've seen. but where every guy crowds up, and then a guy comes and dives on him, then another guy dives, and he's saying that looks choreographed, which it does. A lot of things in wrestling today do look choreographed, but that's just the way that it is. And I'm not gonna lie, there's a lot of things in wrestling I don't like. I hate the rapid kicking out of finishers. I feel like it's overdone. I mean, there's just a lot of things that I don't like in modern wrestling. But to just sit here and act like it's terrible and bad, I just feel like that's just it's kind of wrong to me, because you're just an older guy just hating on the young generation. And Bret Hart is a valid person to actually say this, because he's one of the greatest of all time. This was somebody else, because I've heard other people criticize wrestling. I'd be like, who are you to even say anything? And I just don't understand that. There's a few guys who be criticizing stuff, and I'd be like, you've literally done nothing inside your career but be a jobber, and you want to criticize people? I didn't really get that. But yeah, this whole, I just feel like, I mean, yeah, some of it is right, but let these guys do what they're doing. I mean, wrestling, it seems like it's starting to grow even more. There's the biggest WrestleMania, SummerSlam selling out tickets. So, I mean, if the fans love it and they're not complaining about it, even though I feel like there are a lot of problems in modern wrestling, but to just sit here and act like that is all terrible and bad. And I do think Bret Hart actually feels this way. I do think that he actually feels this way. I don't think he's just saying it just to say it, because Bret Hart always says stuff exactly how he feels. But I do feel like other people are actually doing that. But tell me your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think about Bret Hart actually criticizing modern wrestling, Jon Moxley, and just wrestling in general today? Tell me your thoughts in the comment section below. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching.